Well, a new warning from the White House as Congress seeks a deal to keep the economy from heading over that fiscal cliff we've been talking so much about. Welcome to the second hour of Happening Now. I'm Jenna Lee.
I'm John Scott. Once again, the economy edges closer to that cliff. Last time, lawmakers punted the can down the road. Well, now there might be enough political pressure on both sides to reach some kind of compromise. House Majority Leader Eric Cantor telling Fox News earlier that everyone wants a deal. Otherwise, come January 1st, taxes go up for everybody.
We don't think that raising tax rates is something that's good for this economy that will help grow jobs. And so what we have said is there are ways for the federal government to have more revenue if we grow this economy, engage in tax reform. That's the proposal we've got on the table.
The White House today adding more pressure, warning all the uncertainty could hurt consumer confidence, adding yet another drag on an ailing economy. Several high-profile senators making it clear on the Sunday talk shows that taxes remain a key issue.
I'm willing to generate revenue. It's fair to ask my party to put revenue on the table. We're below historic averages. I will not raise tax rates to do it. I will cap deductions.
I would be very much opposed to raising tax rates, but I do believe we can close a lot of loopholes.
They have to go up, either real tax rates or effective tax rates. There's ways of doing that. Secondly, though, we've got to close some significant loopholes.
Brett Baer is the anchor of Special Report. Brett, maybe we can get an explanation from you. These Republicans are talking about raising revenue but not raising tax rates. How do they do that?
Basically, they close tax loopholes. They put a cap on deductions. So, in other words, for high-income earners, let's say the cap was $50,000 you could take in deductions. They don't specify what specific deductions it would be, but that's the cap of tax deductions you could take. And thereby, after that point, you don't get any more deductions, so the amount of taxes you pay goes up. Now, this is not new, John. This is what really Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan were running on. As they talked about it, they got hammered again and again for not being specific on what tax deductions and loopholes were going to close. But this was the line for the Republican standard bearer, the candidate. So when you hear these senators and congressmen talking about that and not raising tax rates, it's not a new position. It's not a backing down on some stance. It's really what the stance was. So I think we're at the beginning part, the 10-yard line, if you will, of this whole fiscal cliff negotiation with a lot to go.
Well, what are you hearing about which side is willing to budge? I mean, this president just won re-election pretty convincingly, promising to raise tax rates on the wealthiest Americans. Republicans lost seats in the U.S. Senate. What's the motivation for Democrats to blink here?
Right. I mean, it's a tough position negotiating-wise for Republicans to be in, but the key point here is that you're starting to hear things from Republicans that they are willing to talk and begin to negotiate at the table. They're not in a great position for that negotiation, but the key question is whether President Obama is going to take this moment to get Democrats to the table on entitlement reform, Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, and whether any of that can be specific on the Democratic side. Because remember, while you're hearing all of this backing off of the tax pledge, in other words, willing to close these loopholes and cap deductions, you're not hearing on the Democratic side specific changes to these entitlement programs, which both sides will agree are the major drivers of the deficit and debt. Listen, if you raise taxes as the administration wants to do now, you don't, in other words, extend the Bush-era tax cuts, you raise $824 billion over 10 years. Now, the government, the U.S. government, is funded, it takes $1.3 billion a day to fund the U.S. government. So you divide all of that, do the math, carry the naught, and basically you get about 65 days of funding for the U.S. government just on the taxes. So it doesn't get you too far in the big picture.
Well, and I've heard some Democrats saying maybe it wouldn't be such a bad thing to let the country go over the fiscal cliff, at least for a short period of time.
That's one negotiation ploy. I think you're hearing that as well. You know, if you go past that deadline, then the new Congress could come back and retroactively essentially give them everyone a tax cut. So those new congressmen and women and senators will be able to say that they had a tax cut. It's all semantics here. The bottom line is what the president will bring, what House Speaker Boehner will bring, and these closed-door negotiations, which, you know, we'll get a sense of, but probably won't get the back and forth.
Well, 36 days left to get a deal done. Most of those days in December, when not a lot usually happens in Washington. It's going to be interesting. Thanks for watching it for us, Brett.
Okay.
You can catch